Right? Okay, look into Article 15. Another, the explanation of consent. Consent to be bound by treaty expressed by ascension. This is the spelling. Ascension will only come after the treaty have already enforced. You assent when the treaty provide for such consent may be expressed in the means of ascension. All right, at the end after the treaty have already enforced. It is otherwise established that negotiating states will agree that such consent may be expressed by that state by means of. All right. Okay, all parties have subsequently agreed that such consent may be expressed. Semua orang kata gitu. All right. So the country that signs late assent, but their assent later. All right. Okay. But nobody is objecting. Nobody who? Nobody, the member of the, all right, new treaty, nobody object to it. Everybody agrees to it. All right. Exchange of deposit. Unless the treaty otherwise provide instrument of ratification, acceptance, approval, ascension, establish the consent be bound by a treaty upon the exchange itself by the contracting party, the deposit of the depository. Deposit ni apa? Maknanya dia hantar a copy of that consent to the depository. There is a specific office for depository. The office is in New York, United Nations, all right, depository center in New York. All right, the notification to the contracting state or the depository if so agrees. You hantar sendiri kepada negara-negara yang lain. Siapa yang hantar? This part is done by the committee. If the committee is United Nations or the United Nations organs, then that organ is the secretariat. If the committee is on a private treaty, then the organized committee will have to send it to the contracting parties, to the parties who is a member on or a country that have signed. All right. Consent to be bound by part. Kalau you consent part saja, the treaty, unless the treaty permits it, then you boleh consent to the part. All right. In 1958, the UNCLOS Treaty number 1, all right, the treaty body, the content of 1958 UNCLOS says that states can pick and choose the section that they wanted to consent. All right, tapi in 1982, tak boleh pick and choose. You have to, once you consent, you have to consent all to the 320 provision. But in 1958, you can pick and choose. That's the reason why Malaysia picked section 5, 7, 9, 14, 15 or something like that. Only about less than 10 section that Malaysia follows in UNCLOS 1958. The rest Malaysia doesn't follow that because it can be given sanction to any part if the body of the treaty allows it. Right? Otherwise, all right, if there is no such allocation to agree on some parts, you must agree on, then your signature or your ratification or signature and ratification gives consent to all the 320 provision. All right? Okay? Boleh? Right. Dekat Articles 18, all right, obligation not to defeat the object and purpose of the treaty. That is another one. A state is obliged to refrain from act which would defeat the object and purpose. Nampak tak dua perkataan? What is an object? What is a purpose of a treaty? Okay. Therefore, in the formation, the first part, usually in a treaty, you would see the objective of the treaty. What is the objective of the treaty? Is the aim why the treaty is signed. I'll give you an example in the case of Gap Chikobo Nagimaros. In that situation, the treaty they signed, the objective is to make sure that the flow of water from the river will be equally distributed between the two countries, Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia. Apa nama kes dia? Gap Chikobo Nagimaros. All right. Okay. Right. Now let's look into this. Article 38. Kata tadi obligation not to defeat the object and the purpose. We are trying to understand the word. What is the objective of a treaty? That is the aim that the treaty is signed between the two countries. All right, so that the water will be flowing equally to the situation. Tapi purpose? The purpose is in order to achieve the objective, the purpose of this treaty is to build a dam. Alright? Okay, so jangan lupa. Purpose is how the methods to achieve the objective. Jadi in a treaty, you must identify this dulu. Alright? This dulu. Kenapa saya tak cakap dulu tadi? Because I want to go through the section. This is why it's important to go through the section. Alright, in all the treaty, when you are asked to evaluate whether the treaty have met the condition states in Vienna Convention Law of Treaty, look at the objective, look at the purpose. Dia tak boleh satu benda. Dia mesti dua perkara. Satu is the aim, the other one is the method to achieve the aim. Right? The example is Nagi Maros. The case of Gapchikobo Nagi Maros, where the objective is to make sure the water from the river that divide the two countries flow equally. That is the objective. To achieve that objective, the purpose is signing is that they will build a dam and the financing of the dam will be borne by them too. Can you see? Always remember that. Yeah. All right. That is the best way to differentiate objective and purpose. All right. Okay. So it has signed the treaty and exchanged the instrument, but then unless it shall have made its intention clear not to become a party to the treaty. Kalau you tak nak, you say so. All right. Then it becomes a contract and it's not a treaty. Or it has expressed consent. All right. Pending the entry into force that it will not, okay, right? So it says so. There are one in A kata, kalau you, all right, consent to it, all right, kalau you consent, you don't consent to it with the intention to create legal relation as a treaty, then it's only a contract, all right? Tapi kalau you consent to it that makes it into a treaty, you simply just wait for it to become enforced. Enforced to kalau there are more than two, or sometimes the treaty will be enforced, all right, after the treaty have achieved 30 or 40% of the activities promised in the objective, right? Okay, any questions? Sekarang ni in the document, I'm looking at part C, issue related to formation of treaty. What are the effect of unilateral statement? Only one party enter into a treaty. Treaty can be unilateral, bilateral, and multilateral. Okay, now let's look into that. Yeah, all right. If the states made such declaration with intention to be bound, then unilateral statement will be binding. Again, they look into. All right. Okay, once the text is adopted, the negotiating parties must give consent to be bound by the treaty. Siapa negotiating parties? Dalam treaty, when you read, you must look into Article 2, negotiating parties, negara yang berminat but belum sign. But once the negara sign, they become contracting parties. Once they ratify, they become state members. Right? Okay? Macam tu dia punya terminology. The methods of giving consent has already been read in Article 10 to Article 16. So therefore, if the question asked you to establish principles of free consent or to evaluate the questions that is given to you whether there is treaty or not, you will have first to evaluate whether the agreement to, all right, is signed with free consent. Go through section Article 11 to Article 16 and apply that law to the question given. Barulah dapat jawapan dia. There is free consent. Alright. What if a state make reservation? Sekarang kita sampai dekat part reservation. Alright. Before that, I'll give you a few minutes Do you have a question before we look into the reservation? Alright. Yes, Azila, ada soalan ke?
Prof, just now you mentioned a few terminology.
Ya.
Yang apa rectification semua tu? Can you repeat? Thank you.
Which one? I mentioned banyak. Yang mana you nak repeat? Give me some.
Yang after the unilateral, you mentioned that the last one will be ratification. The first one is apa? Second
Oh,
one.
okay. Dia macam ni. Bila saya kata terminology is the name. Alright, the name of the states. Kalau dia baru ada intention, tapi the intention are not proper yet to sign the treaty, that state is called negotiating states. Kan dia nak sign, dia baru bagi initiation, dia baru initial aja, dia baru sign agreement referendum, dia belum lagi sign sebab dia belum ada authority. Dia boleh tak sign the referendum? Boleh, sebab dia kena balik kat kampung, alright, and the states kena agree and confirm that dia ada authority. Alright, that situation, country tu nama dia negotiating states. Alright. Nombor 2 terms dia ialah contracting state. Contracting state. The contracting states ni states yang dah sign. Tapi tadi kita baca kadang-kadang state tu sign tapi dia suka sampat aja, dia tak suka lagi, dia setengah part lagi. Alright. Okay, ataupun dia belum confirm that they will be able to do some of the compliance. This country, dengan awal saya kata apa? Dia dah sign. Dia ada full capacity to sign dan dia dah sign. Alright, that country is called contracting states. Alright, boleh? Okay, now come the third one. The third one is state member to the treaty. Bila jadi state member, bila you dah sign, alright, bila you dah siap your compliance obligation, and then you dah send a letter or a memorandum of ratification. That state yang dah buat benda ni, it's called apa? That state is called state parties. Right? State member, state party. State member party. Member state party. Right? Okay, dia jadi party. Bila dia state member party, dia dah boleh vote. Reject orang tu, reject orang ni. Tadi dia tak ada full power in the treaty. Sekarang dia dah state members. Jadi kalau dekat Antarctica punya experience, satu masa dulu Malaysia is only, Malaysia datang lambat. Tapi sebelum tu Argentina and UK, we know they are always at a row with each other because of their resentment to the Falkland Island. Falkland Island is an island belong to UK, but in the waterway of Argentina. So every time they both are state members. Maknanya state members to the Treaty of Antarctica. All the time, alright. Bila British made a proposal or saying something, alright, the state Argentina will always object. We don't like that. We don't want that. We want it to be changed. So usually UK, right? Okay, at the end of the day, will not come out with resolution. But who will do the resolution for them? US or Russia or other countries, right? So UK will just vote. But who initiated? It's always UK, all right? Because they are the leading scientists in Antarctica. But very rare because they don't want to be argued, contested, refuted, delete, you know, okay? They don't want the hassles in the meeting, right? To rules this and that. Argentina will always, at the end of the meeting, lepas 2 minggu of the conference or the summit. Antarctica has its own summit, just like United Nations Summit. They will make a declaration. They haven't tired themselves. Dari tahun 59, alright, okay, sampailah tahun semalam that I have visited the conference. They will always make a statement. They read the same statement from their president We want to make a statement that we refuse to accept the decision that Falkland Island, which is in the waterway of Argentina, belongs to the British. Okay, can you see? Some country, not that they don't respect, they just say they do not accept that decision. Tapi dia tak buat apa pun. They just simply wanted the country to know that English have no rights over the Falkland Island. But they didn't. They were not aggressive. Remember British kata apa on the Falkland Island? They are ready to wage war if ever Argentina interfere with their property. Right? Jadi Argentina kata, wah, they reject, but they didn't do anything. But words is very important, isn't it? In international law, objection is always very important. Yeah, alright. Okay, ada soalan lagi?
Prof, memorandum of ratification or gratification?
Bukan G, ra.
Ratification,
Yeah.
okay.
Tak ada G. Right? Gratification tak ada. Ratification ada. Kalau you tersalah dengar, mungkin saya tersalah cakap. Tapi the right one is memorandum of ratification. Yeah? Alright. Memorandum ni apa? Just a surat. Official surat macam tu. Alright, nanti yang di Pertuan Agong akan tulis, sign, shop, nicely, cantik, warna keliling, ada emas, something like that. Alright, so it's just a letter. Okay, alright. Now we come into the reservation. Okay, this is the most vital. We go through the act dulu, nanti we go through into some of the cases of reservation. Right, bear with me, Article 19. Formulation of reservation. Bila boleh buat reservation? Right? Okay, what is a reservation? A state may, when signing, ratifying, accepting, approving, or assenting to a treaty, formulate a reservation unless. Nampak ni banyak ni. Waktu sign dia kata boleh hantar, ratify boleh hantar, accept boleh hantar, approve boleh hantar. Bila-bila nampaknya boleh hantar a reservation. Alright? Unless the reservation is prohibited by the treaty. Ada ke treaty that prohibited reservation? Ada. Rome Statute tak boleh ada reservation. Alright? ICC, International Criminal Court. Alright? We pull our signature away, meaning that we refuse to become a member because there are no reservation. They don't allow reservation, so a reservation cannot be done anytime. Although the first sentence kata reservation can come anytime, provided the treaty content did not prohibited it. If the treaty content kata no reservation, then no reservation. Sometimes the content of the treaty is silent. It doesn't talk about reservation at all. Can you presume that in that silent, meaning that tak ada nampak dekat mana-mana section tu ada reservation? Can you presume reservation is allowed? No. Alright. Reservation is allowed. It will have a paragraph that says any state can come up with a reservation. Alright. Tapi kalau tak ada, the content is silent, we cannot presume that it is allowed. That's the law. Right? Because reservation could change the effect to the states that have the reservation. Okay, now let's look into B. The treaty provides that only specific reservation which do not include the reservation in question may be made. For example, all right, you can say reservation to wildlife. Reservation is only allowed to wildlife that flies. All right. Okay, so you will say protection to wildlife. I like this example. All right, maybe you have heard it. Protection to wildlife is a new treaty signed by the world. Right. What is wildlife? All right. Wildlife include birds. Right. All wildlife, either crawling or flying, it includes birds. Right. Jadi you have to protect all the birds that is about to be extinct or wildlife. All right. Now, bila kita protect wildlife birds, then that then restrain those hunters who have a season of hunting birds as the sport or exercise, right? Or in a country, it says, in the provision, it says, you can protect wildlife, all right, provided you can, all right, okay, hunt some of the wildlife except pigeon. So pigeon will be protected. So in your country, pigeon is a symbol of peace. So pigeon are the one that you cannot hunt. The rest you can hunt as a sport anytime. Or at the same time, all right, you can protect that. So the fox, musang you boleh tembak, pigeon tak boleh tembak. All right. Okay, so you see, if reservation goes to that particular, then that you can reserve. Jadi in your reservation, all right, pigeon is a sacred bird, or in your country, pigeon during summer is the spot that is mandatory. Everybody go out and kill pigeon, right? You can have that reservation. The reservation can be in a positive or in the negative. That is what it means. If it allows specific reservation, then you can have specific reservation. You see, in case of not failing under A and B, not falling under subparagraph A and B, the reservation is incompatible with the object. The reservation is incompatible. Maknanya, your reservation, if it contested to be in conflict with the object and purpose, you cannot have that reservation. Right? So the rules is sometimes read like this. Reservation is allowed if reservation is not incomplete, in conflict with the treaty. Yeah.